In Florida, somebody here reports their abduction. And the witness says, I've experienced things before, and so have a few of my family members. I'm not sure why they come or when they will, but they do. It was a normal night, not unlike any other, July 5th, 2017. I went to bed and I woke to brightness in my room. I grabbed my phone and I saw that it was only 4:26 a.m. And I wondered why it was so bright in my room since it was only 4:30 a.m., but was suddenly so sleepy that all I did was lay back down in bed as if nothing happened, and I went back to sleep. At least that's what I can remember. As if something was blocking my memory. It feels like there is something blocking my memory. In the morning, I found it strange that I remembered waking up to a bright light but had done nothing to investigate it. And when I showered, I noticed 3 spots in a triangular shape on my upper leg. But as usual, I cannot remember what happened and just accept it. All I remember is the powerful light. Wow. You know, it is quite jarring to imagine being in these folks' shoes. Let's see here. In Missouri, and this is just the United States, you guys, there are pages and pages and pages of sightings from all over the world in the last month. But this one comes from Missouri. I was sitting in my office about June 16th, 2017, when one of my employees, who was currently on a smoke break, boy, isn't it always the smokers, right? Bless them, told me to come outside. He told me to look up and straight ahead, in which I saw one glowing object. He told me that there were 3, but one had disappeared. As soon as he told me that the second object turned its lights back on, started to slowly fly away. As soon as it got above us, it disappeared, but I continued to snap pictures and got the outline of the object. And again, they're just white lights, little white dots against the black sky. Trust me, if we had a clear, and I mean clear and good UFO photo, it'd be on the website. But I know you guys have seen these kind of pictures many times before. Now, this one is quite odd. Let me see here now. Let me see. This is in New Jersey. Witness says, my brother and I were outside when we noticed what we thought to be a star in the sky on July 16th. It was a shiny speck. We both ran inside and grabbed my camera, which had a 250 times zoom lens. With 18 megapixels, we took 4 photos. We went back inside to look at the pictures, and in all, we realized that they were shaped oddly and had what looked like pipes. It was not a star at all. Thinking that it was a UFO, we went back outside to take more pictures, and it was already gone. And that just looks like a strange blob. I don't know. If you can imagine what an octopus would look like in zero gravity, that's kind of like what I'm looking at here. It's really difficult to tell exactly what it is. And this one isn't all that special, but it is a UFO sighting. Let me see the date here, July 6th. Salem doesn't tell me if it's Oregon or Massachusetts, but the witness says, I was driving along, I witnessed a metallic sphere moving through the clouds and then hovered away. I lost sight of the object around the next bend. So look, there are plenty of people. This is all I'm trying to illustrate to you, is that there are plenty of people out there seeing UFOs. I mean, that is just the first few pages. I've got page after page. Las Cruces, New Mexico, New York, Oregon, Tennessee, West Virginia. It goes on and on and on, man. Washington, Australia, Canada. People are seeing UFOs all over the world. Just all over the world. I don't know why this isn't getting the attention that it should, but it will tonight, because that's exactly what Cheryl Costa and I are going to talk about. So let's take a break right now and go get a refill and get yourself settled, because if you want the latest statistics and what's going on with UFOs, well, then you don't want to touch that dial. I'm Heather Wade. We'll be right back with Cheryl Costa.
I'm trying to make a funny ad, but my wife rolls her eyes and laughs. If you can't tell, this is Bob Crane. The internet sometimes has its buffering problems, but it has changed the radio industry forever. So I would like to spell radio backwards and call it OIDAR for original, incredible digital audio radio. That's where C. Crane comes in. If you have an unstable or weak Wi-Fi signal, C. Crane can make it strong. The Super USB Wi-Fi Antenna 3 can detect a Wi-Fi network hundreds of feet away and boost the signal to make your connection reliable. It plugs into your computer's USB port, it has easy-to-install software, and you have C. Crane support.
For details, search C. Crane Wi-Fi Overview. That's C. Crane Wi-Fi Overview. Also, check out our powerful repeater to create your own high-power hotspot for all electronic devices. Call C. Crane anytime at 800-522-8863. That's 800-522-8863. Or at ccrane.com. We're light years ahead.
Hi, folks. Let's wind the clocks back 60 years. Food was different. Food provided health and nutrition, and using supplements was minimal. Unfortunately, now we have chemicals, GMOs, herbicides, and pesticides that can be quite lethal in the name of our food supply and, of course, the ever-loving dollar. Supplementing our diets can be very important to stay healthy. Cleansing from daily intruders to the body might be critical. Live strong and take charge. Log on to getthetea.com. Our herbal tea is a great way to cleanse from intruders. Our supplements is a great way to maintain and improve your health. When your health is not up to par, go to getthetea.com. No GMOs, no fillers, and organic, and very helpful in keeping you at the top of your game. Life is too short to feel, you know what I mean. Stay in the game, at the top of your game, with getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. Again, getthetea.com.
Okay, nurse, let's get this man to the ER stat.
Right away, doctor.
We see this every day. Heart attack or angina pain due to blocked and clogged arteries. Chelation can remove obstructions or blockages from arteries and help avoid painful and expensive surgery. Now there's Angioprim. It's a liquid oral chelation product that you take with juice. You start to feel the results fast. Angioprim increases blood flow all over the body, and that means more energy and strength to take on the day with less aches and pains. 60 years of research has gone into chelation, and Angioprim is the result. A safe and easy way to unblock your veins and arteries from buildup that slow circulation.
Paging Dr. Jones. Please report to the emergency room right away.
Log on now for a special radio offer from Angioprim. That's angioprim.com/radio. ANGIOPRIM. Angioprim.com/radio or call 877-882-7221. That's 877-882-7221.
Hi, folks. CBD is the home run hitter for health right now. Why, you ask? Because of what it does for the body. Unfortunately, I can't tell you all about the benefit. You know, there's reasons. Do your due diligence and log on to ancientlifeoil.com. That's ancientlifeoil.com. Ancient Life Oil uses organic ingredients and is blended in coconut oil for some of the best benefits. Legal in 50 states and non-psychoactive. Log on to ancientlifeoil.com. That's ancientlifeoil.com.
Attention Dark Matter radio listeners. Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to every minute of the Dark Matter radio network by calling 605-562-4444. No smartphone, app or internet is needed. Saves your data plan and no extra cost if you have unlimited minutes. Dial 605-562-4444 to listen to the Dark Matter radio network on any phone, anytime, anywhere.
Raging into the night with Midnight in the Desert. To be part of the show, please call 1-952-225-5278. That's 1-952-225-5278. First-time callers are always welcome at 1-775-285-5800. That's 1-775-285-5800.
Well, Cheryl Costa is a two-service military veteran, a retired aerospace security engineer, and she's a published writer and playwright. As a playwright, Cheryl Costa's stage plays have explored the offbeat and the metaphysical. She has had a lifelong interest in the subject of UFOs, and this deep interest led her to author the weekly newspaper web blog titled New York Skies for SyracuseNewTimes.com. For the past 4 years, she has written lively accounts of the subject of historical UFO sightings in New York. She's written about UFO statistics, disclosure, and other ufology topics. Now, on the quieter side of Cheryl's life, she has had a robust spiritual journey. She's been a Wiccan for 40 years. As of this year, from 77 to 2017. And in 1994, as an elder priestess, she went on a 2-year spiritual walkabout and ended up living 7 years in an American Buddhist monastic life to expand her mystical insights. And it is really a pleasure to welcome Cheryl Costa to the program tonight. Thank you so much for joining me tonight, Cheryl, and welcome to the show. How are you doing tonight?
Good evening, Heather. How are you?
Oh, gosh. The night is young, and I have had, as usual, way too much coffee. Way too much.
It's 12:30 at night here, so I'm drinking coffee intravenously here.
Well, good. We'll get along just fine. Well, in your bio here, it says that you've had a lifelong interest in the subject of UFOs, and one of my favorite things is to ask people how they get involved in the UFO subject, because there's almost always either a funny or an interesting story, or it's always interesting to hear. So what about you? What got you into such a wild subject as UFOs?
It was 1965. It was late August, about 2 weeks before school started again. Okay, we had been up to visit aunt and uncle and some cousins up in a place called Savona, New York. The population there at that time was probably about 400 people. And it was about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. We were coming down off the hill from where they lived, and looking out into the western sky. It was clear blue sky, so as far as you could see, not a cloud in the sky. And parked out there in the western sky was a big silver ball. And to give you a perspective how big it was, if you hold your little finger, your arm out, look at your little finger, that's how big it was. It was big. And my mother had my father pull the car over to the side of the road. Of course, my brother and sisters were toddlers. They really didn't understand. I was 12. And my mother explained it might be something from the Air Force, it might be something that NASA was doing, On the other hand, she said it could be a flying saucer. It could be people from other worlds. And we had a little discussion about that, mother to child. Mm-hmm. And we watched it for 10 minutes, and we started driving again. And I watched when my father had the car turn to get on a highway. I was watching it out the backside of the window. And I was just sitting there studying it when it suddenly decided to depart. And it's like you see in the Star Trek movies, gone,
mm-hmm.
And that just totally fascinated me. And thereafter, my mother and I had a relationship of, every time a new book came out at the library, one or the other of us checked it out and shared it with the other.
Oh, well, how cool is that? You had your mom right there along with you on this crazy subject. I kind of like that. That is really cool. I mean, that she had all the options laid out for you, including, well, it could be aliens from another world, honey. And being 12 years old, that's right in that impressionable time, right?
Yeah.
Well, it is no wonder then, because you got to have the experience that I'm a little envious of. You got what I like to see the sun glint off the metal of a craft. And I, people are constantly telling me to be careful what you wish for because I want to see that. The only UFOs that I've seen have been at night, and I look at their behavior. You know, when they behave very strangely or they have a light configuration that just doesn't look like a plane, you can pretty well tell that's something that just doesn't quite belong in the sky. But you had the experience, boy. I wish I could.
Well, what was interesting for me is that we shared this stuff, okay, and parents and teenagers sometimes don't have when you get to be a teenager, there's often that attitude of parents are stupid, And
no, it's not that they're stupid. It's just that, come on, they're dorky for you at that age, right? You got to be cool. You got to show how cool you are. Come on, Mom, don't bring me down.
Well, this became one of those things, especially like when Eric von Daniken's book came out. Chariots of the Gods came out there about that same only a few years later, and my mother read the thing. She couldn't put it down, and then she gave me this. She had it for about 3 days and handed me this paperback book all banged up, and I read it. I was fascinated, and but I wouldn't really call me one of those, as they say, a believer in those days. I was interested, and I was very interested. My next event was 7 years later, I'm sorry, when I was in the Air Force. I was an airman in the Air Force, and I was in Cam Ranh Bay, Vietnam, and I was going to midnight mass for Christmas Eve. Mm-hmm. And Christmas Eve, 1971. And I was walking to the base chapel. Now, where we were in Vietnam was in Cam Ranh Bay. It's essentially a big sandbar, so it's sort of like Virginia Beach. It's a big, just lots of sand. And there wasn't a huge amount of light pollution, so there was a gazillion stars in the sky. Okay, so I'm walking down to go to this midnight mass, and all of a sudden, I see this light streaking across the sky up below Taurus, and I was sitting there looking at that. And I says, "Well, it's probably a jet, After all, it was Vietnam." And suddenly, it just, when I said that, well, it must be a jet, it stopped, and then it sat there and started darting around like a fairy.
Uh-oh.
Bing, 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 and then it just shot off like a star, as they say, as the proverbial starship. Needless to say, my mind was not on midnight mass when I got to the chapel. That totally fried me, and I didn't share that story with anybody till about 15 years ago.
Well, you were in the Air Force, so had anyone told you not to talk about UFOs? Or
No.
Did you just know that my sanity is going to be questioned if I even bring it up?
Well, that was kind of the flavor back in the 60s and early 70s, which is this whole idea of ridicule the people who report these things. Mm-hmm. And so I just didn't say anything, even to this day. I was talking to a guy this afternoon at the Blueprint shop where I get certain copies made. And he said, "I saw you in the paper. I saw you had a book on UFOs." And then he busted out laughing. He says, "I think that's the silliest thing going." What was I going to say to the guy?
Oh, really? Well, I know some people that would like to have a word with him.
Yeah.
Wow.
But the bottom line is that that started an exploration over the years, and basically, bottom line, I just kept very well read. All the rest of the time I was in the Air Force, and later when I was in the Navy, I was just I'm a 2-service veteran, so I mean I've seen both sides of it, and I just kept well read. And then in 1991 time frame, I was between apartments, and I suddenly got hospitalized. And after I came out of the hospital, I needed a place to recuperate. And a friend of mine was taking care of his dad who had cancer. So he said, "Look, I got a house over in Laurel, Maryland. Here's the keys. Take care of the kitties and feed the cats and stay there as long as you need to." So I did.
Okay.
Well, the guy didn't have cable, but he had a library of first editions of just about everything that had been written about UFOs up until that point.
Oh, you hit the jackpot.
You betcha. So I had 6 months of time. I stayed there for about 6 months, and I read all these books. Again, I got very smart. It was like going to college on UFOs and paranormal stuff. And so that was that really woke me up. Bottom line, how did I get to this writing this newspaper column was in 2012. I had retired from Lockheed Martin, and I was working for a newspaper as a technician on the overnights, a production technician. Okay. And we had just put the newspaper to bed. The presses were rolling. So all I had to do was sit there and wait about 90 minutes for the run to be done. So I'm Googling, I guess I Googled CNN.com, and there was this little sidebar story. This is November 4th of 2012. A little sidebar story said, UFOs have been declining since the 1980s. Maybe they were always just an urban legend.
I think I know. I think I've read that article too. Yeah.
And in my gut, again, because I was never really an activist, but I was well read, I said, that doesn't feel right. So I went ahead and went out first time in my life to the MUFON site. And I just Googled yearly numbers for about a 15-year period since the 80s up to about 2000. 2001, something like that. I put them in a little Excel spreadsheet and graphed it. And
there you go.
Went up like a rock. Go ahead.
I said, well, there you go. Put it in Excel, and then you've got graphs where you can look at and study the data.
It went up like a rocket. And the first thing that crossed my mind was, what memo didn't the UFOs get?
Yeah, well, exactly right. I mean, let me see here now. And this is sightings just from, I believe, July and June. And I've got 14 pages from July and June this year. And I know, this comes from Major George Filer. So I know that he's going through all the UFOs that are reported, and he's pulling out, the good ones, the ones that have something interesting to them. And he pulls those out, and he does these weekly reports. And I keep telling people until they're tired of hearing it to go over to George Filer, search for George Filer online and go to his website and subscribe. It's free to subscribe, and he sends out these weekly reports of news about UFOs, and then toward the very bottom of his weekly email are UFO sightings. And I mean, we're getting pages and pages and pages of them. I have another 17 pages over there in my office. I didn't get through all of them. I couldn't possibly get through all the UFOs that are being seen in one show. And besides that, people would their eyes would glaze over and they wouldn't want to listen to that anyway. But there are plenty. It seems UFOs being seen. Where is the UFO community on this? Why isn't, why are people out there saying that there aren't enough UFOs being seen, or that they're on the decline if the data says otherwise?
Well, I interpreted it, when I read that back in 2012, I interpreted it as misinformation. The UFOs have been on the decline since the 1980s. Maybe they were an urban legend. These aren't the droids you want. Okay? That whole mentality. So what I did was, I was a budding writer at that point. I was just finishing a bachelor's degree, late in life bachelor's degree in writing. Okay? So I went to a couple of editors that I knew, the newspaper editors, and actually about 12 of them altogether. And I got laughed out of a lot of offices when I proposed the idea of a weekly column about just the sightings in New York State, because New York State had a lot of sightings.
Oh, a lot of sightings. In fact, I had a lady call me one time from upstate New York, and I had some kind of fresh UFO sighting that night in the area. And she calls in, and she goes, "It's not a big deal to us. We just see it all the time now. We don't even make a big thing out of it. Oh, there's another UFO."
New York State is number 6 in the country for sightings.
Wow. Incredible.
From 2001 to 2015, 5,141 sightings.
Wow. How many papers did you have to go to before somebody bit?
Well, In fact, I had one night editor at one paper basically said to me, she said, "What brand of tinfoil do you wear?" You know,
Reynolds Wrap. Why?
Yeah. So the bottom line was, the newspaper business has been having their shares of layoffs and everything, and a whole bunch of copywriters got laid off from the big paper here in town, and a couple of them went over to a little weekly paper called the Syracuse New Times. And the guy who became the editor-in-chief, Larry Dietrich, I called him up and said, "Hey, Larry, I got this idea. I'm getting laughed out of offices." He said, "What's it about?" I said, "UFOs." He said, "Come on over and talk to me." So we went over and sat there and had a cup of coffee before he even looked at my 5 slides. And he started talking to me very seriously about it. This guy obviously had read all the same books I had back in the 60s and 70s.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he knew who all these authors were. And so he finally got to the point where he felt I was comfortable with the subject. So I showed him my 4 or 5 slides and made a proposal. And he said, "Great, okay, we'll try this on the online edition," which is what they were trying to grow. You know, we'll try it for a month and see what happens. I'll probably take you off after a month if it doesn't grow anything. And I said, "Fine." You know, about a month later, he calls me up. He says, "Come on over. I want to talk to you." I figured, well, that's it. It's all over.
Yeah, this is
and I
it.
Get in. Yeah, you know, I figured that was the pink slip. And I get in there to talk to him, and I said, "So you're taking me off?" He said, "No." He says, "You're drawing more page views than all the columnists combined."
Who's laughing now?
Yeah, so we just celebrated 4 years this week of doing a weekly column, New York Skies.
Oh,
and,
congratulations.
Just in the last week or so, my boss and I have been talking about this for months. The title of the thing is going to still continue to be New York Skies, but I'm now also reporting UFO sightings and reporting stories in other states. Because since I wrote this book of national statistics, we thought it totally appropriate that I talk about the whole country.
Wow. Well, then let's dive in, shall we? What is going on? Well, your book, UFO Sightings Desk Reference, covers UFO sightings from 01 to 15, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Took 16 months to write.
Wow. Well, that's the time period, I guess, that we're focusing on. And so what do you see in that time period? A decline or an increase? Stable? What?
From 2001 to 2015, we see 3 waves of increase, and the numbers triple over that 15-year period.
Triple?
Triple. It goes from about 3,500 in 2001 to about somewhere in the area of around 14,000 in 2015.
Wow.
For a total for that 15-year period, 121,036.
And are 121,000 people all hallucinating and all crazy? You know, we only need one of those to be the real thing, right?
Well, that's my argument, because I broke it down at one point and said, well, if you go back and say that there is only, let's say, you know, the most conservative investigators that I talked to, I'll give you an example. Ben Moss, he's the chief investigator for Virginia for MUFON. Okay, and he'll quote a number more in the 4% range are the genuine thing. Okay. Now, you know, other people will say 20 or 30%. Okay, fine, great. But I said I'll go with conservative numbers down in the 5 to 6, 7% range myself. Okay, so in the book, Linda and I, when we wrote it, Linda's my spouse. We said, okay, let's go with about 6%. But even if you look at 6%, we were talking that huge number. We're still talking about 30 biblical events, close encounters of the third kind of events a year. Actually, more like 30 of those events a month over across the entire country, if you average it out. That's a lot.
That is. That's more than we think. It is much more than we think. And then you can't say anymore that UFO sightings are on the decrease, can we?
Well, it's even bigger than that. Now, when we wrote the book, I was working with a number Stanton Friedman had given us at a convention where Stanton had gone out at conventions and had people, if you've, you know, a couple thousand people in the audience, and he'll say, if everybody who saw a UFO, please raise their hand. And almost every hand goes up. And then he says, how many people reported it? And he's got people out there in the house counting, and it's always averaging up to about 10%, 1 in 10. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So if my numbers of 121,000 are 1 in 10, then we're talking 1.2 million altogether.
Oh, man.
That's for that 15-year window. Now, that's based on 1 in 10.
And it makes sense because, look, all walks of life see UFOs, right? So you've got business people, you've got people in the military, first responders, housewives, children, regular folks, people from any walk of life can see a UFO in the sky. And many times, people don't say anything at all. They don't tell anyone. I don't know how many times I've picked up the phone here on the program and someone starts it off with, well, I've never told anybody this, but... And so that makes a lot of sense. 1.2 million in what time period again? Is that 15 years?
2001 to 2015. Now that's based on
14.
That's based on this 1 in 10 idea.
Okay.
Well, in the past 2 weeks, there was a national poll done, and this one was done by a professional polling and survey company. I checked this company's credentials out. They've got offices in about 25 countries.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and they sent me the stats for their poll that was taken in the past 2 weeks for 20th Century Fox Home Entertainment, because 20th Century Fox is currently trying to promote that movie Phoenix Forgotten about
right.
some teenagers or young adults that got disappeared after the Phoenix Lights.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Well, here's the deal. The numbers are even bigger than we thought. I'll give you a snapshot here. Are we screaming up on a break? Are we okay for a couple minutes?
Well, we got about a minute and a half.
Okay. To tell you what, when we come back from the break, I'll give the stats of how many people really think we're seeing these things.
Okay, sure, we can do that.
The numbers will surprise you.
You know what? I bet they will. And like I said before, when the program started tonight, this is a very important conversation to have because we're all sort of under the impression that there's just not enough UFOs being seen, and everybody has a phone in their pocket, right? So why don't we have UFO, and why don't we have the pictures? Well, like I said, in my report here from George Filer, and this is just this week, almost every one of these has a picture. Now, these are not impressive pictures. You know, like I said, you'll either see a dark spot against a bright afternoon sky or a white light against a dark nighttime sky, but they do have photos. They're not the best photos in the world. So people are taking photos of the UFOs they see with their camera phones out there, and they are reporting them. I just don't know if the UFO community is calling as much attention as we should to the sightings that are occurring. And
there's
I wonder
a bigger
why.
problem here. We used to hear about this stuff in the press, and we don't anymore. In fact, when my book came out, I went to all of the major press outlets in Phoenix, Arizona, because it was about 3 weeks before their anniversary of the 20 years of Phoenix Lights. And nobody was interested in the fact that Phoenix, the Maricopa County, where Phoenix is the number 2 county for UFO sightings in the entire United States.
Well, that also we want to talk about because I'm always wondering, what is it with the Southwest and UFOs? So let us take our break here, Cheryl, and we'll come back and talk about the latest statistics and what is it about the Southwest and why are UFOs attracted out there, right? Cheryl Costa is here tonight. We'll be right back, everybody.
Every time I think about it, I want to cry. We're born from the devil.
I'm getting older and noticing that my body just doesn't work as well as it used to. So I like to keep fit as possible by hitting the gym a few times a week. Recently, I started having a nagging bicep pain, and it got so bad I couldn't even lift the weights. When I was complaining about it to a friend, he told me about angioprim. He said chelation helps remove toxins, heavy metals, and cholesterol in veins and arteries that may cause blockages. You know, after just 1 week of taking Angioprim, the pain was gone, and now I'm back in the gym full strength. Scientific research proves the active ingredient in Angioprim has superior oral chelation action that helps promote cardiovascular health. So to learn more, go to angioprim.com. That's ANGIOPRIM.com, or talk to a trained consultant. Call Angioprim toll free at 877-882-7221. You'll feel better with more energy. Call 877-882-7221 or go to the website angioprim.com.
Do you or a loved one suffer migraine headaches? Listen to what scientist Kurt Hendricks has to say.
35 million people in the United States suffer with debilitating migraines. If you or a loved one are one of them, you need to know about MigraLief. Hi, I'm Kurt Hendricks, the scientist that formulated and patented the MigraLief migraine formula. MigraLief is a non-prescription dietary supplement recommended by neurologists, pharmacists, and pediatricians to address nutritional deficiencies in both adults and children over 2 with migraines. Try MigraLief for 3 months and see the powerful difference it can make in your life, or get your money back, no questions asked. Go to MIG911.com or call 800-MIG-7354. You can change your life today.
So if you suffer from migraines, don't wait. Call 800-MIG-7354. That's 800-MIG-7354. Or visit MIG911.com.
Do you worry a lot? If you're forgetful, nervous, moody, or overwhelmed, chances are you're not
This is Gary Garver, and I've written a book called Radio Blows. It's all about my career, my time with the Howard Stern Show, and celebrity interviews, my top 10 cool celebrities and my top 10 uncool celebrities. Here's a sample of a couple cool ones and a couple uncool ones.
Make a citizen's arrest on me? Yeah, I'm going to take this stuff here. Yeah? All right, I'm holding you. Call, get the marshal. We'll see. We'll see who's wrong. We'll see who's wrong. Get the marshal right now? We'll see who's wrong.
Are you one of the scary morning people who are going to ask horrible things? You got that look. Are you?
Do I have that look?
You do. You got the look like, watch me do something I would have in second grade.
If you're forced into gay sex, who would you choose? I don't get forced into anything.
Thanks a lot, Jack.
If you were on a desert island and you had a choice of making love to Pamela Lee or Janet Reno, who would you choose?
That's a question I don't want to answer because my wife might be listening to the show.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay, Radio Blows, available now on Amazon, Amazon.com, and Kindle. Radio Blows. If you want to get in the radio business or find out the inner workings of radio, it's a must-read book.
A superior nutritional supplement called Arbor Vitae has taken Australia by storm, and it's now available in the U.S. Arbor Vitae contains a unique combination of maritime pine bark, aloe vera, honey, and an enzyme from papaya seeds. This potent supplement was developed to impact inflammation in the human body. Arbor Vitae helps blood circulation and respiratory function. Its anti-inflammatory properties can also relieve minor muscle and joint pain. To order, log on to ARBORVITAEUS.com or phone 1-800-570-0433 and enter code KCAA at checkout to receive a 10% discount. Arbor Vitae is Mother Nature's helping hand. Order this unique supplement now. Call 1-800-570-0433 and mention that you heard it on KCAA to get a 10% discount. KCAA Loma Linda. Listen on 1050 AM, 102.3 FM, and 106.5 FM.
Of loving everywhere, so give me the night. Give me the night.
What's said in the dark stays in the dark. Call Midnight in the Desert at 1-952-225-5278. That's 1-952-225-5278. First-time callers are welcome at 1-775-285-5800. That's 1-775-285-5800.
Because we all know that the night time is the right time. So I want to head on over to the wormhole. I got a very good message that came in. This comes from Leslie in Washington. Leslie says, people don't get involved with UFOs. UFOs get involved with people. At least that's how it goes for some of us who are minding our own business when they decide to pass overhead at low altitude. So maybe I need to rephrase my question when my guests come on. Don't ask them, how'd you get involved with UFOs? But maybe I should ask them, how did UFOs get involved with you? Exactly. So I'd like to welcome Cheryl Costa back to the program tonight, my guest this evening, because she has some very important information for us, and that is the latest statistics. Cheryl, welcome back, and what have you got there? I'm just dying to hear this.
Okay, to refresh your listeners, this survey was done in the past 2 weeks, so it's brand new stuff, and it was done by a major international polling company, and it was commissioned by 21st Century Fox Home Entertainment. Stats that they're using to support their movie Phoenix Forgotten, which is about the Phoenix Lights. Mm-hmm. Okay, what they're saying is 47% of those surveyed believe in aliens. Now that works out to about 150 million Americans of 320 million Americans, okay?
Okay.
38.78% believe aliens have visited Earth before. That's 124 million Americans. This is the key number on UFOs. 16.74, essentially about 17%, say they have seen a UFO. That's 53 million Americans.
Wow.
Okay.
That is an impressive number right there.
It gets more squirrely in a minute here. 18% believe abductions happen. That's about 56 million Americans. And 27% know someone who claims to have seen a UFO. So that's about 86 million people. Now, I was recently, you're going to love this. After my book came out, I got approached by about 8 or 9 different television producers who wanted to do something based on the book. And we signed a contract last week for a national television program.
Oh, well, even more congratulations then.
Thank you. I can't disclosure agreements, all that kind of stuff. I can't tell you more about it than that. But it's let us say it's a prominent company who's done television documentary series on all those high cable channels that you know about, that do alien programs and things, and investigative type programs.
Okay, well, good. I mean, the more shows talking about this, the better. The more everyone talks about UFOs and extraterrestrial life visiting Earth, I feel, the better, because the more conversations that are had about it, the more it becomes accepted. And what I want to happen is for people to not be so reluctant to share what they've seen. And the more of us that talk about it, the more these people will come out to say what they have seen. And that takes us closer and closer to the truth.
Well, part of the show we hope to have, actually Linda and I have both been, my co-author in the book, Linda, my spouse, we've been signed as actually part of the producers. So we actually have a say in the show. And part of it's going to be a road show, and we're going to get a national conversation going about disclosure, and get people to start owning up and telling us about their sightings and things. And so we hope to be really out there talking to just regular folks about it. Mm-hmm. But let me give you one more number.
Okay.
All right. Now, I took that number of 53 million people say they've seen a UFO.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, that doesn't tell us the time period, but I know for a fact that prior to about 1999, the numbers actually were pretty scant on sightings because people weren't reporting them. Part of that is because of we started getting a lot of reporting capability in the 90s as people started getting online with like America Online, CompuServe, dial-up services, BBS services, that type of thing. So those numbers started climbing through the 1990s as most people started getting broadband, at least in the major cities, around the late 90s, early 2000 time frame. That number really started to come up, and that's what another reason Linda and I chose the 2000. People are saying, well, why didn't you go back 40 years? Well, frankly, the data was pretty shaky, but from 2000 to present, the numbers are pretty good because people have lots of access to broadband and web, and they know how to do it. So that's why we did plus we wanted the idea of 21st century numbers. Too many times a lot of this stuff with UFOs it tends to sound like a golden oldies radio station. The best UFO crashes from the 50s, 60s, and 70s, you know.
Oh, yeah.
And so we decided, let's do a 21st century sample.
Well, It's about time. It's about time somebody did.
Well, here's what happened with these new findings. This morning I got on the phone with another New York State published UFO author, Tom Conwell. And we sat here for an hour having coffee on the phone with our calculators and paper out and sat here and ran some numbers. I wanted somebody to back up my numbers. We came to the same conclusions on the numbers. Based on this 53.5 million people say they saw a UFO. We don't have 1 in 10 people saying they saw a UFO or reporting a UFO. Actually, the number is actually much smaller. It's 1 out of 442 people are reporting a UFO. And so it's only 0.25% of the seen sightings are being reported.
Oh, my God. Wow. Only a quarter. So you can take your number and multiply it by 4, and that would be sort of an estimate of all the UFOs that are being seen in the United States.
1 in 6 people in the United States has seen one.
Wow. Well, then, what is it with the news? What is it? And I don't mean just the mainstream news. I'm talking about people who talk about these things, paranormal shows. Where is the attention to? Are they?
Well, they are talking to me. But, you know, it's funny. Only after we had it. Well, give me an example. Here's a little bit of a piece of history here. Most people in the UFO community know that the New York Times has never been friendly to this topic matter. Not since 1947 have they ever really had a kind word about UFOs and all of this sort of thing, you know.
Mm-hmm.
When our book came out, somebody took notice of it, and they literally came up here to Syracuse, New York, and spent a day with me and Linda. And he said, my God, you people did the science.
Mm-hmm.
And this isn't stories. This isn't air quotes. This is you did science. This is numbers. And they did the first, back on April 24th, 25th, they did the first positive article on UFOs. And their headline literally said, people are seeing UFOs all over, and this book proves it.
Well, good. I'm glad.
But what's interesting, though, is that a lot of places, I'll give you another example.
Mm-hmm.
I reached out in the weeks prior to that New York Times article. I reached out to all the major press outlets in Los Angeles County and in Phoenix, Arizona, since they are the top 2 counties in the country for sightings. California is the number 1 state. 15,836 sightings in that 15-year period. It's double Texas, double Florida. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And Florida is number 2, with about 7,887, something like that. And Texas was in the low 7,000s. And I reached out to the Houston and Dallas press outlets,
mm-hmm.
as well as Phoenix. And I got stiffed by all of them. And Phoenix really surprised me, because they were about 3 weeks from the Phoenix Lights. And you know the kind of story their prominent station ran down there? They mentioned it. Yeah, we had these things with the Phoenix Lights, and people reported these things. And, oh, by the way, they spent the next 3 minutes of the 4-minute news clip talking about the local congressperson who lost the election because she supported the people who reported the UFOs. Don't let this happen to you, soldier. That was the tone of this newspaper article.
Wow. Really?
And,
so
yeah.
she supported UFOs, as in UFO coverage, as in we need to talk about UFOs, and therefore lost the local election?
She stood up and said, we need to get to the bottom of this. And the opposition made her look like a complete fool when election time came around again.
See, that's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about getting the conversation more mainstream. And then things like that would be less likely, right? I mean, that is just, look, my brain's seizing up because what I'm getting at here is if science is about discovery, okay, that's what science is supposed to be about, discovery and discovering new things, then why do we close our minds when it comes to life from other worlds visiting us here on Earth? What is so crazy about that?
Well, okay, let's look at there's two views of this thing. One view is the scientific academic view, which is what we call rational science, okay? And then there's the other view, which is the philosophical non-rational view. And both processes can get to the bottom of something, but they use different methods. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So science has taken at least, I have one guy from Australia, he's a professor down there, writes me all the time, writes my column. You can't claim you can't claim. He says, yes, I'll go along with you on UFOs, but you can't claim they're extraterrestrial because we don't have one of them in our hand to examine. Of course, for all we know, we do, and nobody's telling us.
Officially, we don't have one that's been examined.
So, I run up against this all the time with people. They say, well, you can't prove it. Well, here's what the New York Times approached to this thing, and one of their Pulitzer Prize award-winning reporters sat up here in the library in my house for the better part of 8 hours, sipping tea and eating cookies and talking with both Linda and myself about this. The bottom line is because we produce the numbers, where there's smoke, there's fire. There's huge numbers here, and nobody knew these numbers were so big. And that's what's shocking everybody was that we actually produced numbers and showed people this thing is bigger than you think. And by the way, this little survey Fox just did, it rattled me this morning. And like I said, I got Tom Conwell on the phone and said, Tom, I want to run some numbers with you. And the two of us sat here and cranked numbers. He's done similar research to mine. And we came up with this number that only 1 in 442 people is reporting what they see, which is about 0.25% of the sightings that are out there. So my number, that 121,000, is only 0.25% of what people are reporting.
Well, the next question is, what do we do with this information? Yes, we get from the information that there are plenty of UFOs being seen out there. What's the next step? What's the next step for you with all this information?
Well, I've been an advocate like Steve. I've been a big fan of Steve Bassett with his lobby efforts to try and get congressional hearings with the idea of going towards disclosure. We sent a 4-page cover letter to both of our New York State senators. Okay, that would be Congressman Schumer and Congressperson Gillibrand. Okay, and Christine Gillibrand, and I can't remember Schumer's first name. Sorry. The bottom line was they got a 4-page letter sent to them. Now, usually when you write your senator or your congressman, you get a letter back within about 2 months saying, thank you for writing me. We'll look into it. Something to that effect. Well, it went on 3 months, nothing. So I reached out to their local offices and said, how come I haven't heard anything about this? And they checked with their offices in D.C. and said they never got a letter from me. So I sent over a PDF of the letter to them, a 4-page letter, and they said, well, this could have been lost in the mail. And I said, so you're telling me someone is intercepting my mail to my elected representatives? And they said, well, what do you mean? I said, well, you're saying that letter was easily lost? It had a 2.5-pound book stapled to it.
No.
Tell me how that was so easily lost.
They opened it, they saw the term UFO, and they went, this is not a concern. That's what they did. And because people laugh at this subject. But if there is unidentified activity in our skies, then we ought to be looking at this. We ought to be talking about this. But I get it. And I think it's because, and I've heard so many different theories, but I think it's because it is a national security threat in that it's something beyond our military's control, beyond our Air Force's control. And the military cannot come out and make a statement that there is a potential threat out there that they can't do anything about. And not only that, Gordon Cooper, bless his heart, he made a really interesting statement not that long ago where he said, well, the trouble is that in 1947, with Roswell, the government told a lie, and then they had to tell another lie, and now they've told lie upon lie upon lie, and they can't unravel all of it, and so the best thing is just to keep a nice tight lid on the UFO subject.
Yeah, and that's about what it boils down to. And when we came out with the book, you wouldn't believe some of the things that came out of this thing. Well, I expected interest in the UFO community, and we had it. But what was interesting, I got to say this up front. Okay, for those who are thinking about running right out and buying my book, if you don't have it, I got to warn you now. It's got 4 chapters worth of analysis, and the rest of it is charts, graphs, and tables. It's got all the charm of a bank ledger. So I've had some hate mail from some people saying, this thing is just numbers. Okay, but, it was intended to be science. It's not cute little stories about sightings and landings and all that stuff.
Well,
it is
the big
science
clue,
about counting the numbers.
Yeah, the big clue there to that is desk reference. That tells me exactly what the book is. It's a desk reference.
Well, there's 2 more in the pipeline based on the same data. Mm-hmm. One is called the Cities Directory. If we had done this in the first book, it would have been, instead of 374 pages, it would have been about 700 pages. That was too big. So we have another one coming out that's going to be called the UFO Sightings Desk Reference Cities Directory, where we can literally drill down to every city that's had a UFO sighting during that period of time and tell you what they were, what numbers they had. And our current book, we do it down by nationally, down to the state, and we added county data so we can literally drill down to the county level. Nobody's ever done that before.
Wow, what did you find when you did that?
Well, we started seeing patterns that nobody saw before, that's for sure. Because we had good county data, some of the cattle mutilation people started seeing patterns that they never anticipated because, you get sightings. People tend to look at the big sightings, and they tend to be around the big cities, okay? And people think that's where all the sightings are. But say you've got 20 sightings out, 1 sighting here, 2 sightings there. As soon as you put county data to it, suddenly you see a cluster sitting there of 25 sightings in some rural county in the middle of nowhere. That starts making people look at it. I did an article about 3 weeks ago about cattle mutilations in Kansas. I had taken a nice article written by an agricultural magazine out there that reported about the thing, and I literally laid out a map of Kansas and pulled out numbers for every single county in the state, and the cluster became clearly available. Took me about an hour and a half on the kitchen table to just print all these numbers in there, taken right out of the book. And
did the UFO sightings correlate with the cattle mutilation data?
Well, not down to days and times, obviously, but it did correlate to let's see, like 15 counties that had the predominant amount of mutilations over the last 30 or 40 years, is particularly where they've had another wave of it here in 2015. in 2016. So, yeah, it did correlate with it. Now, I got to caution you, this, again, scientific issues. Correlation doesn't necessarily mean causality, but
Right.
boy, it's really suspicious. you know?
Right. That was just a question that popped into my head. I mean, I just wanted to know for my own purposes. But yes, and I do get it, that just because you see something strange in the sky doesn't mean necessarily that that's a visitor from Zeta Reticuli. I do get that. But there are things in our skies that we did not build. There are things in our skies that did not come from here, Earth. That obviously has come from someplace else. And there is no government coming out to claim, hey, we built solid, silvery objects that can travel through the sky completely silently. You know, you don't see any government coming out with anything like that, because the other argument is, well, it's top secret aircraft is what it is. Okay.
Well, you know what's funny is that I had one critic when the book came out that criticized the fact that I had an analysis chapter that I took all of the things that could be easily confused, all of the shapes that could be easily confused for some conventional aircraft, blimps, missiles. I even took the delta wings and the triangle things out and saying, okay, let's accept that maybe there's some secret government thing.
Okay.
That was only a very, very tiny percentage. Actually, then we start getting into the oddball things that look like light bulbs and ovals and square board cubes type of things, you know, and diamond-shaped craft and things like this. And those numbers were still very big. And I said, they don't sound like any kind of conventional aircraft, or even close to some theory for a conventional aircraft. You know, so there's something going on here. And so that was the big point that I made in the thing. Well, I had this one critic come back to me, and I had said it looked at about 4% could be the genuine article. And he criticized me. Oh, so you're telling me the book is 94% and 96% noise? I said, no, wait a minute. It's not 96% noise. Here's all the sightings. We don't know which one of those needles in a haystack are the real thing, but we know there's something out there is, because look at the sheer numbers here.
You're right, exactly. And as I said, and as most ufologists know, all you need is one of those to be genuine to prove, yes, we are being visited by something from somewhere. But look, I heard, where did I hear this? I don't even remember where I heard it, but I was watching something here recently, and somebody said, what now? Well, come on. Where is, trash left behind from the UFOs? Isn't there any kind of anything left behind by the UFOs? The man said, I think I was watching some of those old episodes of Unsolved Mysteries that have just been released on Amazon, and the guy said, well, if we are really truly being visited, they would have left behind. Am I supposed to believe that all the UFOs that have ever visited planet Earth have cleaned up behind themselves perfectly? Well, yes. You are. It's not like they intend on dropping flyers over Los Angeles to say, guess what, guys? We've come from another planet and we wanted to introduce ourselves. Hello. That is not how it happens. They fly through the sky, and we don't know what their intentions are. We don't know what they're coming here for. We don't know what they're looking at. We don't know any of that information. All a person knows when they're standing on Earth is they look up and they see something, and they go, wow, what is that? I don't know what that is. And so, no, there isn't, I guess, alien litter is what this guy was looking for.
Well, okay, it goes back to the old idea. I'm going to use a Star Trek term. There was a concern with cultural contamination. Leave evidence of something and you contaminate a culture about ideas.
Right, the prime directive, right? Well, Believe it or not, we are already at another break at the bottom of the hour here. So when we come back, let's talk about that. And we didn't get to the Southwest yet. Let's make sure and talk about that. We're discussing the actual increase in UFO sightings with Cheryl Costa this evening. And like I say, we'll be right back, everybody.
Heaven's holding a half moon, shining just for us. Let's slip off to a sand dune real soon. Kick up a little dust.
love talking about legends, and the CC Radio 2E is an absolute legend, in my opinion, as a matter of fact. This radio will let you hear radio stations that other radios don't even know exist. That's how good it is. The CC2E is the best in AM, the best in FM, the best all around. It'll let you hear your favorite station with much more clarity. The 2E brings in stations clearer and can knock out interference from other sources, which means it has steep skirts. You're going to have to look that one up probably. Sound from the 2E is absolutely impeccable. I'd like you to try the CC Radio 2E. It's got the power, the strength to bring in signals better, and that's what you want in a radio. Trust me, my good friends at C. Crane can do it. Call them at 1-800-522-8863. That's 1-800-522-8863.
Do you or a loved one suffer migraine headaches? Listen to what scientist Kurt Hendricks has to say.
35 million people in the United States suffer with debilitating migraines. If you or a loved one are one of them, you need to know about MigraLief. Hi, I'm Kurt Hendricks, the scientist that formulated and patented the MigraLief migraine formula. MigraLief is a non-prescription dietary supplement recommended by neurologists, pharmacists, and pediatricians to address nutritional deficiencies in both adults and children over 2 with migraines. Try MigraLief for 3 months and see the powerful difference it can make in your life, or get your money back, no questions asked. Go to MIG911.com or call 800-MIG-7354. You can change your life today.
So if you suffer from migraines, don't wait. Call 800-MIG-7354. That's 800-MIG-7354. Or visit MIG911.com.
I'm getting older and noticing that my body just doesn't work as well as it used to. So I like to keep fit as possible by hitting the gym a few times a week. Recently, I started having a nagging bicep pain, and it got so bad I couldn't even lift the weights. When I was complaining about it to a friend, he told me about AngioPrim. He said chelation helps remove toxins, heavy metals, and cholesterol in veins and arteries that may cause blockages. You know, after just 1 week of taking AngioPrim, the pain was gone, and now I'm back in the gym full strength. Scientific research proves the active ingredient in AngioPrim has superior oral chelation action that helps promote cardiovascular health. So to learn more, go to angioprim.com. That's ANGIOPRIM.com. Or talk to a trained consultant. Call AngioPrim toll-free at 877-882-7221. You'll feel better with more energy. Call 877-882-7221 or go to the website angioprim.com.
So you went to dinner last night, you had your favorite pasta. Ugh. Or maybe you had a heavy, spicy meal and it left you. Ugh. Get the T.com. Maybe you mowed down a huge steak and your plumbing is all plugged. Ugh. Get the T.com. Our super strength tea will take care of your occasional. Ugh. It's all organic and non-GMO. Get rid of. Ugh. We have so many great supplements, but our super tea is number one. Get the T.com. That's GetTheT.com.
Do you worry a lot? Whether you're a college student, busy professional, parent, or grandparent, ongoing stress and elevated levels of the stress hormone cortisol can rob your memory, your health, and your future. Now you can combat the effects of stress and anxiety while improving your memory and recall at the same time with the dietary supplement Calm and Clever. Studies show that the ingredients in Calm and Clever reduce cortisol by as much as 30% in 1 to 2 weeks. Call 1-800-758-8746 or calmandclever.com.
When you wake up in the morning and the light has hurt your head, the first thing you do when you get up out of bed is hit that streets a running and try to beat the masses. Go get yourself some cheap sunglasses. Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. Spied a little thing and I followed her all night in a funky fine Levi's and her sweater's kinda tight. She had a West Coast strut that was sweet as molasses. But what really knocked me out was the cheap sunglasses.
midnight sweeps across America, you found an oasis for the mind. To call Midnight in the Desert, please dial 1-952-225-5278. That's 1-952-5278. First-time callers, 1-775-285-5800. That's 1-775-285-5800.
You know what we haven't done in quite a long time on this program, and I think we ought to do it tonight, actually. With Cheryl Costa here this evening, and we're talking about the latest statistics and UFO sightings and a whole lot more. If you have seen, I want to put this out early in the evening, if you have seen a UFO, let's just say this year. You've seen a UFO in 2017. When we open up the phone lines here in about an hour, I want to hear from you. I want to hear about when you saw it, approximately where you were. If you don't want to get specific and say your town, that's fine. You could say the state that you saw a UFO in, and you don't have to give me your name, and you don't have to give me your location, but that's what I would like tonight, and I wanted to put it out there early because I want everybody out there to think about this and go hunt down the phone numbers to the program, midnightinthedesert.com. There's a link that says how to listen and sign up. If you miss the phone numbers, they are given out throughout the whole program, but if you missed the phone numbers, you can go to that link on our page, midnightinthedesert.com, find all the phone numbers, and we ought to just do this tonight. We haven't done good old-fashioned UFO sightings in too long, I would say. So let's go for that tonight. And I'd like to welcome Cheryl Costa on back to the program because right before the break we were talking about the Prime Directive. Cheryl, do you think that's why we haven't had another Phoenix Lights, another major UFO sighting? Because, look, we've got lots of UFO sightings, but where are the big ones?
Well, okay. Where they are is not necessarily why they are. Okay, and I got to say it that way.
Okay.
Okay, if you want the okay, let's go by counties. Okay?
All right.
Top 10 counties in the United States for UFO sightings. Los Angeles County, 3,212. Maricopa County, that's where Phoenix is, 2,019. Cook County, Illinois, which is essentially Chicago, 1,431. San Diego, 1,393. King County in Washington State, 1,393. Orange County, California, 1,271. Essex County, Massachusetts. I'm going to scratch that one. That's a mistake. We found an error here recently. Let's say Riverside, California is 958. Clark County, Nevada is 940. And San Bernardino, California is 836. Now, because we dropped that Essex County, let's throw Harris County, Texas. That's essentially Dallas area. So we're talking 794. Now, so that's for 50. That's the sightings for 15 years in those major counties.
Okay. Well, can you back off of your mic there just a little bit? We're getting a lot of popping over here. But
how's that now?
That's much better. Thank you. Okay. So these are the number of people who have seen UFOs in those counties, right?
This is the number of reported sightings.
Reported sightings, right. Important to make that distinction. All right. And so we've got large numbers of people over a period of 14 years, right? From 01 to...
Actually, 15 years.
It is 15. Okay, so 15 years. We've got large numbers of people, but we don't have a major sighting that hits the news. So do you think that there are major sightings within your statistics that just haven't made it to the news?
Yeah, I do. Okay, give you an example. When I reached out to the Los Angeles media, okay, and they ignored me. Well, about the same time we were putting the book together, I saw a documentary up on a particular channel about UFOs, and they talked about Los Angeles having sightings back in the 1880s, basically before we had manned flight.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yes.
Okay, sightings up and down the canyons and things like this. So, and then of course you've got the Battle of Valais in February of 1942.
Got the Aurora crash back before we had airplanes.
Well, that's Texas. That's Texas, but I'm talking L.A. now.
Okay.
L.A.'s had a strong history of sightings. Now, Phoenix, and I think there's a cultural issue here. Phoenix had the Phoenix Lights 20 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it becomes a social thing and a cultural thing. People who saw those things talk about it, tell their grandkids about it. And I tend to think there's a lot of people in places like Phoenix and in Los Angeles that have grown up with the idea that we had something really fantastic here happen in 1942 or happened back in 1997. And I think what happens is people are looking up more because maybe it will happen again.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense.
That might be an issue here. But, okay, people have written to me and say, well, I think all the UFOs are in the desert. Well, yes and no. Actually, they're not where people think they are. Let me explain. We had a situation where am I still popping? I think I fixed that. Okay.
Move it down just a little bit. I can hear a little bit of...
All right. There you go.
Okay.
So here's what we did. We found out that in fact, Linda discovered this when she was laying the book out. I didn't see it when I was generating charts. We figured out that UFO sightings are not about the UFOs. It's about the observers. It's about temperate weather and leisure time. I'll give you an example.
Well, and the desert has plenty of that, right?
Well, that too. But it's bigger than that. Up in the northern states, we'll take New York State or Washington State, Seattle, Illinois, Michigan, something like this. The peak period for seeing UFOs is in the July-August time frame.
When you have clear skies.
No. All year long, there's a quiescent number of sightings, and then in this late spring, it starts ticking up. May, June starts ticking up, and then July and August are off the scale. And then maybe September's just down a little bit from that, and then it starts tweaking back down to the quiescent level. Now, what is that quiescent level of sightings all year long? Well, it's the people who are outside day in and day out at odd hours. Who's doing that? And the MUFON investigators will tell you this in a heartbeat. People who are going out for a smoke, and people who are taking the dog out for a walk, and people who are taking the dog out for a walk and having a smoke.
Yeah, it's funny because in the sightings that I had time to give tonight, 2 of them were people who were out having a smoke break.
Yeah, it's one of the statistical things we saw. But okay, now what happened was with Linda, I did a chart in the book, and a couple of my UFO investigator friends said they thought it was a stupid chart to do. I did each individual state's numbers by month as well. Not only the years, but I did it by month, the distribution.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people thought that was a stupid chart, but it turned out to be very revealing because what happened was Linda looked over the computer terminal one afternoon and said, hey, have you noticed that they change if you're from the northern states, you start moving down into the southern states, the pattern changes? Well, we thought July and August were when everybody sees UFOs. Oh no, you get down to the middle states, like the middle Atlantic states, go all the way across the country to middle of California, and that middle peak starts flattening out. You get down into the southern states, Florida, Alabama, Mississippi, Texas, Arizona, and it's not flat, but it's statistically flat.
Strange.
Okay, the sightings, they average out.
Okay.
And bottom line, there's a high number, but the quiescent number is the same all year long. So what happens is that we figure it is about temperate weather, warmer temperate weather, and probably good weather for being able to see the sky. The other thing was there was the late author John Keel, who wrote the Mothman prophecies.
Mm-hmm.
He did a thing back in the late 60s, and he took a few hundred, maybe 1,000 sightings and had them run through an IBM computer in Colorado someplace. And they came up with the conclusion that all the sightings were on Wednesdays.
What?
Well,
on Wednesday?
Well, it was called the Wednesday phenomena. Well, somebody approached me after the book came out and asked me about that. And, of course, we can't address it in the book, but I have the database here, so I was able to recrunch the numbers a certain way. And what we found out was poor John Keel was suffering from a small data set. We're working with what they call big data, okay, 121,000 records. And it turned out that it's a quiescent, statistically flat level all week long, starts to tick up a little bit on Friday, about 3%, and then on Saturday it's up 7 to 9%, and then down again to about 5% above that statistical flat. So it's basically Saturday night. Of course, you know, talk show hosts on some of the mainstream stations, well, everybody's out drunk and on drugs, you know. And no, it's about leisure time and availability to take a minute and look at the sky.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what it really boils down to. And because, you know, most people, if you're drunk or you're frogged out on drugs, you're not going to take the time to fill out a UFO report. For one, it's like filling out a credit application. It takes a long time to do.
Yeah, depending on what site you go to, yes.
Yes. So that's an issue. So we figured out it's about temperate climate and leisure time availability. Is two of the major driving factors for people, observers being available to see these things and report them. We accept that there's just a constant level of them up there all the time.
You know what you ought to do? You ought to do the same thing about abductions. Run some numbers on abductions. Have you done that at all?
I don't have the abduction data.
Okay. Just an idea.
I've got several people who are offering it to me, but right now I'm busy trying to get out the city directory and the shapes directory.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Just an idea. I would be very curious to know if any patterns would emerge from the abduction data, which I
suspect the people who did that, who have collected it, like 4,000 or 5,000 abduction surveys in the last couple of years, I suspect they've got that data, but I don't have it.
It would just be interesting to see if the abductions go up at the same time of year in the same places around the country that the UFO sightings are also on the increase. You know, and I get it. It doesn't mean that, you know, correlation doesn't mean causation, but still, I think it would be very interesting to look at.
Well, we found two other interesting patterns that we were intrigued by. One was Alaska. Their summer window is July and August. It's light all the time there. They have what they call white nights up there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And their sighting numbers are all high in the wintertime. And then if you look across January to December, it falls into a valley in the July-August time frame, almost nothing. And then it goes back up again as they start getting some nighttime sightings. So basically all their sightings are at night. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And that's one. In Florida, we have that statistically flat southern pattern, except January has this huge spike. Well, we were able to figure that that's probably when all the snowbirds get away from the winter up here in New York State and all fly down to Florida for the winter. That's one explanation. We saw one we can't explain, and it's New Mexico. Maybe your New Mexico listeners know what the deal is. But New Mexico was statistically flat like a southern state, except for September. September was triple the numbers that they have on a normal statistically flat period of time. September was consistently doubled to triple the normal daily sightings. We don't know why.
Well, I'm not quite sure what to make of that.
Yeah, we didn't either. In fact, I made a comment in the FAQ of the book that said, if anybody can tell us why New Mexico is like this, we'd like to know.
Well, they don't call it the land of enchantment for nothing.
Well, then there's Hawaii. Hawaii had these quarterly spikes, and we were able to talk to some people in the travel business. Again, correlation doesn't mean causality, but it's pretty suspicious that when people do the majority of travel going to Hawaii seem to correlate with major travel and vacation periods for tourists.
Mm-hmm.
And suddenly they're out in the middle of the Pacific, very low light pollution, a gazillion stars in the sky, and people have the time to kick back on the beach and say, hey, what's that? And that's what we think is going on there.
Well, do you think, and this is going to be a little crazy, but do you think that the people that talk about a slow extraterrestrial invasion, do you think there's something to that? If we are being visited as much as we are, do you think there's a possibility about, people like Dr. Jacobs talk about the hybrid phenomenon. Do you think there's something to that?
I wouldn't disagree with it. Do you remember about a year or so ago, some guy out in, I think it was Colorado, put his video camera in a slower, in a higher time frame type of thing. And when he played it back, we actually started seeing in slow motion. We started seeing that they had like what looked like regularly scheduled landings.
No.
Yeah. In fact, a couple TV stations went out there and duplicated the experiment. He literally was able to tell you every day about a certain time you're going to see something come down out of the sky, but you're only going to see it in about every other frame. And he shot his video like that, and a couple of other people have done something similar. There seems to be an awful lot of traffic that just is outside of our frame of what our eyes can see from our eyes only see things at a 1/25th of a second. So if something's moving a lot faster than that, we won't see it. We have a very narrow spectrum of light that we see. A lot of people, the reason people see a lot of UFOs on their catch them on their cell phones and say, "Hey, I didn't see that when I was taking the picture," is because the sensor that they use in the cell phones has can see into the infrared range.
Well,
so
I know
if
you take a night vision scope out and look at the night sky with that, where you didn't see UFOs before, oh man, you're going to see all kinds of stuff moving through the night sky. Although with a night vision scope, it's a little more difficult to discern what's a satellite, what's an aircraft, and what is a UFO. I go by behavior. So if I see something going across the night sky and it's just a steady, straight, kind of slow, steady line, then I think, well, that's likely an airplane. Look at the flashing lights on it. Well, it's likely an airplane. You see something zipping across the sky, moving around, doing these quick maneuvers, doing hard right angle turns and that sort of thing. Well, now we have to ask, what is that?
Thank you. Well, I'll give you an example. I'm like one of these live action role play reenactor type people.
Mm-hmm.
And I was down in a county down in Pennsylvania, Montrose, Pennsylvania, out on an old dairy farm. We're deep in a valley, zero light pollution there. And the whole rest of the horde of the people who are playing that weekend were out in the woods. It's just about 10 o'clock at night chasing a monster out in the woods, as they say. And I was guarding the tavern. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I laid my head back and I was looking at a clear sky. And I quickly figured out the landing and stacking pattern for Scranton Airport, probably about 30 miles away. I quickly figured out the vector routes for the airlines that are flying over me. Okay, very quickly. Just laid my head back against the door of the barn where the tavern is and watched all this stuff. Just very patiently watched it. I still managed to count 20 UFOs that did the kinds of things you were talking about. They're flying along in a weird formation, or they're flying along and then they start darting around and warp out or whatever. I counted 20 things in a period of about an hour.
In 1 hour?
Yeah, and it was just a matter of being patient, laying my head back and just steadying my head back against like a tree, and just sat there and quietly watched the sky. There's another component here. How many people they're constantly distracted? We're kind of like a dog. Oh, ruff, ruff, I want you. Oh, squirrel.
Yeah.
our cell phones are going off left and right and things like this. So people don't have a tendency to be able to focus or be alone with their thoughts. Well, I lived in a Buddhist monastery for 7 years. I know how to flatten myself out pretty seriously. So I just laid my head back and relaxed and observed. And that's what I saw that weekend, that one night.
Wow. Well, then the question has to be, what are they doing here? How many species? What are the intentions behind the visitations? Are they doing anything? I mean, people are clearly still being abducted. The abduction that I talked about just briefly at the beginning of the program, the woman, I think actually, I can't say if it's male or female. I really don't know from the witness account. But what I do know is the person included a photograph of 3 marks in a triangle formation that this person found on themselves the next morning after waking up. And it has to make you ask, why? Why are we being visited? Is Earth some kind of extraterrestrial tourist destination? Or is there a plan? Are there interactive things going on with extraterrestrials and humans here on Earth? And if there are, what are they?
Well, I'm of the opinion that it's a combination of things. I think there has been a major effort to awaken us, okay? Mm-hmm. And if you read the Whitley Strieber books, he talks a lot about them trying to massage us into having a better level of consciousness in order to be able to see this stuff, okay? Mm-hmm. And appreciate it and understand it. And I got a funny feeling that the amount of people that have been abducted is far bigger than the number that we hear about. Okay?
Oh, I've always thought that.
And I don't think it's all. If you talk to I was at a International UFO Congress a few years ago, and I had saw that they had a morning meeting. It was almost like an AA meeting in the morning for experiencers. Mm-hmm. And the first year I went there, I was there on press credentials, and they weren't going to let me in. So I went to the shrink the second year I went, and I said, look, Yvonne, I'll be happy to just leave my credentials upstairs. I just want to come in, listen. I'm not going to report anybody, identify anybody, out anybody. I just want to learn. So I went, and they let my spouse and I come in and sit in. I expected to see 25, 30 people in there crying in their coffee about being abducted and probed. No, it was 150 people, and the meeting had all the energy of a tent revival. Everybody was up and pumped. We had this tremendous experience, and it was a wonderful thing. Too bad other people don't know about this.
Oh, absolutely. And it is very strange that some people, they have positive contact experiences, and then other people have abduction experiences that will curl your hair. Cheryl, I have had people call the program in tears, talking about their UFO experience, their abduction experiences. And then at the same time, I've had people tell me, I've had Reverend Michael Carter, one of my best friends, telling me that he had a contact experience with a reptilian that healed him. And so you've got this wide variety of different kinds of accounts, different kinds of experiences among people. And so it leads a person to think we're dealing with many different species, and they have many different agendas, right? And then within many different species, you're also going to have their individuals, of course. So different groups of individuals are going to have different ideas about what to do on this funny little planet called Earth. I looked at the clock. We got to take another break here. Yep. But let's talk about this when we come back. Let's talk about, when it comes to consciousness and UFOs, there are people out there. There are people out there who can go outside and just think about, I want the UFO to come down. And it comes down. And this is an incredible phenomenon to me. So we have a lot to talk about, Cheryl, and we'll get to it as soon as we come back. Look, I don't know about you. I need a refill. I'm going to go get one, but I am really enjoying the conversation tonight. And like I said, when we open up the phone lines, I want to hear about your recent, this year, UFO sightings.
Korean Pressure, a new novel by Mike Gilmore. Every expert agrees China must be the solution to reining in the North Korean military and calming the rhetoric from Pyongyang. However, nobody predicts the after effect until Korean Pressure. A terrorist attack in the heart of Beijing kills the Chinese First Lady. Hours later, the supreme leader of North Korea narrowly avoids assassination. The evidence points towards South Korea and the United States. And despite all efforts to control the situation by the U.S., the North Korean armed forces cross the DMZ and the Second Korean War begins. With the aid of his trusted confidants and one lone spy operating in Pyongyang, the American president must determine the truth behind both terrorist attacks before China moves their own massive military to the Korean Peninsula. Korean Pressure, exclusively on Amazon.com. Korean Pressure. Get your copy today.
Hi, I'm Matt Ray for U.S. Gold Bureau. I cover the market daily. No matter how strong it gets or what long-term predictions say, you can count on one thing as certain. There will be another crash. It will affect your assets. And when it happens, wouldn't you rather be 2 weeks or even 2 months ahead of the curve? Well, Wall Street insiders have been quietly converting their assets into gold for the last few years. Now it's your turn. Buying gold and silver is easier than buying stocks. With the U.S. Gold Bureau's Investor Guide, it's free. And you learn how to buy precious metals in or out of an IRA or 401k retirement plan. Your investment's shipped directly to your home and is 100% insured and guaranteed. You control your investments and shelter them against the stock market, politics, and unknown threats. Act while your dollar is still worth something. Call U.S. Gold Bureau, 800-885-GOLD. U.S. Gold Bureau, 800-885-GOLD, 800-885-GOLD. Call today.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream.
For several years, KCAA has been marketing the Youngevity brand of nutritional and personal care products. Our experience with Youngevity has been 100% positive, so we are pleased to recommend them to you. Regarding nutritional supplements, we recommend Pollen Burst in the berry flavor and Tangy Tangerine 2.0 in the tablet form. For regularity issues, we recommend 3-Day Cleanse, and for personal care, we recommend Morning Hydration Cream. You can shop online for Youngevity at www.kcaateam.com, or you can order by phone by calling 800-982-3197 and tell customer support that you are part of the KCAA team. Youngevity is an American company based in San Diego. Call Youngevity at 800-982-3197 and ask about monthly auto ship that allows you to buy Youngevity products at wholesale prices. That number again, 800-982-3197. A superior nutritional supplement called Arbor Vitae has taken Australia by storm, and it's now available in the U.S. Arbor Vitae contains a unique combination of maritime pine bark, aloe vera, honey, and an enzyme from papaya seeds. This potent supplement was developed to impact inflammation in the human body. Arbor Vitae helps blood circulation and respiratory function. Its anti-inflammatory properties can also relieve minor muscle and joint pain. To order, log on to ARBORVITAEUS.com or phone 1-800-570-0433 and enter code KCAA at checkout to receive a 10% discount. Arbor Vitae is Mother Nature's helping hand. Order this unique supplement now. Call 1-800-570-0433 and mention that you heard it on KCAA to get a 10% discount. KCAA Loma Linda. Listen on 1050 AM, 102.3 FM, and 106.5 FM.
The clock strikes 12. And Midnight in the Desert is pounding packets your way on the Dark Matter Digital Network. To call the show, please direct your finger digits to dial 1-952-225-5278. That's 1-952-225-5278. First-time callers, of course, at 1-775-285-5800. That's 1-775-285-5800.
And of course, when we open up the phone lines here in about a half an hour, you'll be more than welcome to ask Cheryl Costa questions about what we've been talking about so far. But also, I'm looking for your recent UFO sightings. And recent means 2017. If you have seen a UFO this year, I want you to call us up tonight and tell us about it. I don't care if you have a picture. I'm interested in your witness account. That's what I want to hear about tonight, because, you know, we hear this more and more lately. Where are the UFOs? We just don't have a lot of UFO sightings lately. Apparently, we just haven't been looking at the right information. And Cheryl, welcome back to the show. We may have solved one mystery here. I got a message in the wormhole from Rowdy, who says, I lived in Albuquerque for a while, and in early September every year is a massive hot air balloon festival that draws people from all over. So that might contribute. I'm not saying that's responsible for all the UFOs in that area in September, but it might be contributing to it.
Yeah, I would agree. Mm-hmm. I wondered about that because I've seen those kind of hot air things when I visited New Mexico. So, but again, until someone can tell me definitively what it is, it's just an interesting anomaly.
Yeah, well, right. And, I don't think a hot air balloon at night is going to be zipping around the sky. That you can rule out hot air balloons there. But before the break, an interesting subject came up, and that is how it is some people can summon UFOs. And this is interesting to me because you spent 7 years at an American Buddhist monastery. So if anybody knows a little something about consciousness, it's going to be you. And if there's someone who knows a little something about UFO sightings, that's also going to be you. So having read as much as you have about the UFO subject, you know about Dr. Greer. You know about the people out there who do this. You know about James Gilliland and his ranch up on the Pacific Northwest. What is it? Do you have any idea, any theory as to how it is that these people can summon UFOs?
Well, in one word, it's about consciousness. I'm going to use Star Wars terms. Everybody will understand what I'm talking about. Okay, that way I don't have a muddy term from one particular sect of spiritual study versus another one.
Sure. Okay.
So there's this omniconsciousness. We'll call it the Force. Okay, and as they say, it binds the universe together. All living things are tied together. If you look at quantum theory, there's a thing called quantum entanglement, and all things are interconnected. All living things are interconnected. Okay, so in fact, the thing I have to explain to a lot of people, a lot of reason that most people think God or the consciousness is out there, and the reason they think I am me and I'm separate from all of it is it's a thing what we call dualistic thinking. Basically, they think they're separate, therefore they are. They are not. They are not separate. They just think they are. Okay, mm-hmm. They are tied to every bloody thing in the universe. Okay, now the reason most people are not perceptive, not telepathic, not have ESP. Everybody has this connection. Anybody that's ever worked in remote viewing will tell you this. Almost anybody can do remote viewing. The reason is because we're all connected. Okay, we're all wired into the Force. Mm-hmm. So the deal is the people who seem to be able to be more connected to it are people who have quieted the chatter in their mind. In Buddhism terms, we refer to it as the monkey chatter in your brain. And these days it's even worse because we've got these I used to complain in the monastery. We'd have students in there, and I used to tell them, you can't be a Jedi Knight and learn all this mystical stuff and everything like that if you're sitting there on your meditation pillow with your cell phone in your pocket and it's buzzing every 5 minutes, disturbing you and disturbing us. So we got to the point where we banned the cell phones from the major meditation rooms. We said either turn it off completely or leave it in the car. Mm-hmm. And I used to have a saying. I used to say, because I was in Washington D.C. areas where this monastery was, and I said, "Are you a member of the White House staff? And you need to be reached by the White House communication staff." But they said no. I said, "Fine. Are you a emergency medical technician? And you're on call?" No. Okay, turn it off. Are you a part of the national security apparatus and you're on call? No. Then turn it off or take it out, put it in your car. And that was our rule. And I have that rule as a teacher too. If I teach a class on something like remote viewing or meditation or something, I tell them, I said, you're not going to learn this stuff with a cell phone in your hand. And of course they blow me off and they say, oh, well, but it's not that big a deal. Yeah, it is actually. Because every time you get some kind of a text or something like that, it's stimulating the endorphins in your brain, and it's changing your brain chemistry so we can't do the work we're trying to do.
Oh, it robs your patience.
Yes, thank you. That's a great way of saying it. That is a great way. So, okay, let's talk about people who are touched by off-worlders or interdimensionals. Okay, that's why I use the term off-worlders, because I'm not quite sure if they're off-world by dimension or they're off-world by spatial distance. Mm-hmm. Okay, I don't like to use the scientific term of extraterrestrial because it plays into science. Off-worlder is much more, let's say, neighborly and casually. They're not from our neighborhood. Okay. All right. I've got two little old ladies here who came back about 2 years ago. They'd come back from the lake. They'd spent a week at their cottage. And one of them was still bringing in their bags. The other one had gone down cellar to their pantry to get some stuff for supper. The one who was bringing in the bags from the car heard a blood-curdling scream. She ran in. Her partner was sitting on a landing on the steps, laying back, like trying to shield herself. And when she looked into the cellarway, she saw what looked like brown bats dancing around. Okay.
All right.
Well, in the coming weeks, they discussed it, and the thing became clearer and clearer to them that it was some kind of a screen memory, and it became clearer to them. And the woman who had gone into the cellarway, when she walked in the cellarway, there was a little short guy about 3.5 feet tall in a blue jumpsuit, bald with big almond eyes, standing in the bottom of the cellar, going through some of their stuff that they had in storage down there.
I see. Well, we've got us a visitor.
Yes. Well, I asked them if they would do something for me. And we arranged for it. We went over to, I think it was Spencer's Gifts or someplace, and bought a little portable battery-powered blacklight. Mm-hmm. And I asked them to check each other every day or every evening before they bed in a dark room, turn on the blacklight and go over each other and check each other for spots. Mm-hmm. And one of the women, who said she's been seeing these UFOs since she was a teenager, okay, and she's about 10 years older than me, and it's in her 70s, and suddenly her partner looked at her and started noticing that she had these iridescent triangular dots on her, and they were in different places of her body, different times, and it was about once a week. In fact, she said Maisie said you can set your clock by it. It seems to be on Friday night. They're both insomniacs. They both sleep like the dead on Friday night. They get up on Saturday morning, go into a dark room, turn on the black light, and Lucy has these iridescent dots on her. They take about 3 days to fade, maybe faster if you're in the shower, but they don't wash off.
They don't wash off. Oh, God. Well, can you say
they
on
fade
the
in
air?
about 3 to 4 days.
Okay. Can you say on the air where these are seen? I mean, is it her arm? Is it her leg? Her neck?
Yes.
What?
Yes. They have found them on her neck. They have found them on her legs. They have found them on her arms. They have found them on one of her breasts. They have found them near injuries. Okay, she had an injury, and while that injury was healing, the weekly dots showed up down around that leg, around that injury, that type of thing.
And are they in a triangle formation?
Yes.
And have you seen pictures of this?
Yes, and I've actually seen the dots up close.
Okay, good. And how far away would you say, if you were to estimate, each dot is from the other? I mean, are we talking about an inch apart from each other, inch sort of triangle formation, larger than that?
Yeah, it varies. It's sometimes as little as a half an inch. It looks like does not look like it's a rubber stamp. Believe me, it's just little pinpoint iridescent dots. It's very whitish. Okay, and the dots are typically about a half an inch. We've seen them as big as 1 3/4 inches triangle. That's rare. Most of the time they're about 3/4 inch to an inch. It is not a perfect equilateral triangle. It has more of an isosceles feel, like one leg is always seems to be a little longer than the other.
Okay, got you.
Okay. And we have found them on the bottom of her feet. We have found them on her legs, arms, hands once. One time it showed up on her cheek.
And forgive me for asking.
Interestingly enough, the time it showed up on her cheek, shortly thereafter, about the same time, she had to go to the dentist. Turned out she had a dental abscess on her upper jaw.
Oh, isn't that weird? Well, you have to forgive me for asking this, but I have to ask. You didn't also happen to see any glow-in-the-dark paint lying around?
No, we check for that stuff.
Okay. Just because I know some people out there are probably thinking that, and
yeah,
I know.
We did a pretty forensic check on that type of stuff.
Okay, and I get it. A couple of old ladies having something weird going on with them. They're not trying to pull a fast one on anybody. I imagine that it's the classic story we hear. They probably don't want their names out. They probably don't want their identities revealed. They just want to tell somebody this is going on and maybe get some answers.
That when I interviewed them, I changed the names of anybody I write about. Okay. Mm-hmm. And my editor and I agreed on that a long time ago. We weren't going to out anybody. And but we were not going to let that stop us from telling a good story too, So we have had other people here that have had unusual things going on. Every kind of story you've ever heard, that's what these are like. These two ladies, it was rather interesting to me because they reached out to me and said, "Can we talk?" So we met them like at a Denny's, mm-hmm. and they told me this story about the little guy in the cellar, and I realized that there's a guy by the name of Chellan who talks about the screen memory things with grays. Okay, that they do some kind of telepathic projection that plugs into our archetypal memories in our brain and mm-hmm. makes us, see this thing. Well, bats, most of the time, most people see birds that
owls.
Have had UFO experiences.
Yeah, I did a whole show one time on the owl phenomenon. It was really weird.
Owls.
Yeah.
Well, he did. I saw him a couple of years ago at the International UFO Congress, and he'd made a 4-foot cardboard cutout of a 4-foot owl because that's what one lady said she saw this 4-foot owl, and it was basically the gray.
Dead giveaway to me.
Projecting owl.
Mm-hmm.
And so I looked at this thing with the guy in the blue suit with the almond eyes and the bald head. and I said, wow, this is falling into that screen memory thing. And Linda has a psychology background. She says, well, bats are definitely in our archetypes, so it's, or we wouldn't have Batman, that kind of thing. But there's different things. There was a kid I went to school with back in the 60s. He's passed now. But back in the high school, we referred to him as the flying saucer whisperer.
Because he could summon UFOs? He could call the UFOs?
Oh, yeah. The first time this happened, it was about 67. And we were a whole bunch of, summertime. We'd been out there playing kick the can in the street or something like that,
Mm-hmm. And, once upon a time, we all had one game. It was called Outside.
There you go. And we were sitting on this one person who was a shop teacher at the local high school. We were sitting on his front porch. And we were talking and everything. And there'd been talk about UFOs. And I remember actually it was there had been some kind of a story in the news about them, and this one kid, his name was Craig, and we all knew Craig had gifts of a psychic nature.
Mm-hmm.
And so he says, one day he was looking at us one summer evening. And he says, "Well, I bet I could reach out and touch them. I bet I could call one of the things." We were all laughing and everything. Yeah, right. So he said, "I'll try it." So he sat over there in this rocking chair and went into like a little meditative thing. And for a couple minutes, we're all kind of snickering a little bit, but that was it. The next morning, we opened up the city paper. And about an hour after he had done that, there were neighborhood reports on our side of the city of people reporting a UFO flying at treetop level. This bright saucer-shaped thing, and
wow, that is great.
He was killed in a car wreck back in the late 80s, but that was my first exposure to someone who was somehow wired into it all.
Well, then you think it's just a matter of our collective ADD that's preventing us from being able to do this. Average people, I include myself in this. I've got the ADD too. I'll be talking to my producer and all of a sudden, oh my God, it's a bunny rabbit. Look, I actually do that. That's not even there's no joke there. So, I understand that. But at the same time, like I said at the beginning of the program, I want to see the sun glint off the metal of a UFO. I don't want to guess when I'm seeing the next UFO I see. I absolutely don't want there to be any question. That is clearly something not from Earth. And so if I were to quiet my mind enough, what is the thought process? Have you ever done this? What do I do? Do I just think about UFOs? Do I think about the grays? Do I think about, I want the truth to come out? Help me out.
Okay. And undoubtedly you've heard of the Close Encounters 5 Dr. Greer's protocols.
Yes.
CE5. Okay.
Yes.
All right. I know a handful of people. I've interviewed some CE5 people here in New York State on the phone. I have a good working relationship with about a half a dozen people right now. And I have to keep it kind of tight. As a reporter, I have to kind of protect my sources.
Sure.
But I wrote a 3-part article about CE5 about 2 months ago in my thing. It's probably one of the most page-viewed articles I've ever written. Which surprised the heck out of my editors because they thought it was it sounded pretty new agey. But on one hand, one copy editor, I have 2 editors, and my first copy editor said, "Oh my God, it looks like Obi-Wan Kenobi wrote this one," and so it had that whole the Force feel to it. But I owned up to my audience, said, "Look, I used to live in a monastery. Let me explain. I understand this consciousness thing." The key thing here is about quieting this chatter in your mind.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other thing is about being willing to not completely rationalize everything away just because you get this little thing in your mind's eye that looks back at you. Now, the first contact for a lot of people in this thing is that they don't get a flying saucer out here in the backyard. They get literally a mental image. And I'm not saying a big color, Dolby Sound CinemaScope picture. No, anybody who's done remote viewing knows it's like getting a psychic image in your head. It's like looking through a bucket of mud. It's that black screen. When you close your eyes, it's that black screen with a light iridescence in it, and that takes on a form. And that's what it looks like. And I've had it. I've done it a couple of times, and literally had the type of gray, not the little bulbous head grays like we see on greeting cards and things like this, the stylized thing, but the pop gray, as I call them. No, I see the gray like you see in the front cover of Whitley Strieber's book, Communion. And I've met many people who said when that book came out, they would get into the B. Dalton or Barnes & Noble bookstore, and they'd sit there and stand 20 feet from it and couldn't get any closer to the stand with all the books. In fact, one guy, I remember when he saw it, he said, stood there a minute, and he said, well, they got the eyes right. And I was really quite shocked at the time. I said, you've seen this type of thing? He says, I must have. And that's all he could tell me. Oh, yeah. I remember listening to Art and Whitley talk years ago, and I remember people calling in to tell Whitley. I remember one specifically. It was a young woman who was in the grocery store. I remember back when they used to have a paperback rack at the grocery store, the spinny kind. You'd spin it around. Mm-hmm. And she saw Communion paperback on that rack and had to leave the store. She had to leave the store, and then I think she was at the store with her mom. And her mom pays for the groceries and comes out, and she's saying, what is the matter with you? What happened? Did something happen in the store? And she did say, well, I saw the book cover, but then she clammed right up, and she didn't want to say any more about it than that. But she said the same thing. I recognized that face. That's why I had the reaction. That's why I had to get out of there. I had to get out of that store. So there are people recognizing that face, which to me, that just makes the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. But back to let me tell you a monastery story related to this. All right. A friend of mine used to be, I'm going to call it like the personal assistant to one of the lamas. Mm-hmm. And this is back in the late 90s. And they were out in the southwest of all places. I think they were out in New Mexico, north of Albuquerque, south of Santa Fe. I think it's the Jemez Mountains. And they went out for a hike. And they both packed a little lunch, and they went out for a hike. And they were way up there in the hills. And the Lama said, let's meditate for a little bit. So the two of them sat there and meditated. And the assistant, not being as adept at meditation, kind of came out of it a lot sooner than his boss did, so to speak. And he saw something shiny peek up over the hill, over the next valley. And when he saw it, the Lama simply whispered, we have guests. and then the Lama said, well, maybe they'll show us a little bit more. And the Lama put his hand out and kind of waved it up a little bit. And the saucer-shaped thing came up above the horizon of the hill. And then the Lama kind of moved his hand to the left, and it moved to the left, and it moved then he pointed to the right, and it moved to the right. And it was obviously he was connected to this thing. Wow. At some level, he was getting his point across. Right? Well, that is quite amazing. Hold it right there. I do want to hear more about this, and I want to talk about it. But hold it right there, because I do have to take a break right now. And isn't that curious that a Tibetan Lama would have
such a connection with a UFO? Well, when we come back, we also need to open up the phone lines, which we'll do. And I want to hear about the latest, most recent UFOs that you have seen out there. I'm Heather Wade.
Never seen us so blue, you know I could not run away, it seemed. We'd seen each other in a dream. Seemed like he knew me, he looked right through me. Yeah.
Hi, folks. Let's wind the clocks back 60 years. Food was different. Food provided health and nutrition, and using supplements was minimal. Unfortunately, now we have chemicals, GMOs, herbicides, and pesticides that can be quite lethal in the name of our food supply and, of course, the ever-loving dollar. Supplementing our diets can be very important to stay healthy. Cleansing from daily intruders to the body might be critical. Live strong and take charge. Log on to getthetea.com. Our herbal tea is a great way to cleanse from intruders. Our supplements is a great way to maintain and improve your health. When your health is not up to par, go to getthetea.com. No GMOs, no fillers, and organic, and very helpful in keeping you at the top of your game. Life is too short to feel, you know what I mean. Stay in the game, at the top of your game, with getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. Again, getthetea.com.
Do you worry a lot? If you're forgetful, nervous, moody, or overwhelmed, chances are you're not protecting yourself from the ravaging effects of stress and anxiety. No matter the cause, ongoing stress and elevated levels of the stress hormone cortisol can rob your memory, your health, your quality of life, and your future. Now you can combat the effects of stress and anxiety while improving your memory and recall at the same time with the dietary supplement Calm and Clever. Studies show that the ingredients in Calm and Clever reduce cortisol by as much as 30% in as little as 1 to 2 weeks, and increase your ability to recall facts, names, and numbers in 4 to 12 weeks. Calm and Clever was created by scientist Kurt Hendricks, a principal investigator in 2 NIH-funded studies on Alzheimer's disease. Try Calm and Clever for 2 months. You'll feel the difference. Call 1-800-758-8746 or go to calmandclever.com.
Do you or a loved one suffer migraine headaches? Listen to what scientist Kurt Hendricks has to say.
35 million people in the United States suffer with debilitating migraines. If you or a loved one are one of them, you need to know about MigraLief. Hi, I'm Kurt Hendricks, the scientist that formulated and patented the MigraLief migraine formula. MigraLief is a non-prescription dietary supplement recommended by neurologists, pharmacists, and pediatricians to address nutritional deficiencies in both adults and children over 2 with migraines. Try MigraLief for 3 months and see the powerful difference it can make in your life, or get your money back, no questions asked. Go to MIG911.com or call 800-MIG-7354. You can change your life today.
So if you suffer from migraines, don't wait. Call 800-MIG-7354. That's 800-MIG-7354. Or visit MIG911.com.
Being that Midnight in the Desert is a late-night show, we understand if you can't stay up through the entire program, so you should consider a Time Traveler membership, where tomorrow you travel back in time and listen to tonight's show, and also have access to all of our other shows from the past for playing anytime on your computer or your smartphone podcast app. All of the commercials like this one are removed, so you get a nice studio-quality, compact version of the show. We continue to offer the live show for free and welcome your participation by calling into the show each night. Time travelers also have access to the wormhole, a neat way to send text messages into the future to Heather, which she receives during the show and includes on the air. It's exclusive to time travelers. Check it out. So visit midnightinthedesert.com, look for and click the How to Listen and Sign Up post, and then click on the Join Here banner. So Heather and I and Art all thank you for considering becoming a time traveler, and we will hope to continue bringing you great programming every weeknight on Midnight in the Desert.
Sun beat down, I had the radio on, I was driving, trees went by, me and Del were
Midnight in the Desert doesn't screen your calls. We trust you. But remember, the NSA, well, you know. To call the show, please dial 1-952-225-5278. That's 1-952-225-5278. First-time callers are welcome at 1-775-285-5800. That's 1-775-285-5800.
Well, I have some bad news, guys. I don't know what has happened, but my guest has been abducted. Somehow, some way, I don't know. When I went to the break, I can just tell you what happened from my point of view. So I looked at the clock and I realized, oh my gosh, I got a break coming up in like 45 seconds, so I need to take the break. I was really wanting to hear more about this llama who was able to, control the UFO just with his hand movements. That is a story I have never heard in my life. How interesting, right? I mean, I would pay good money to have been there to see something like that. But then I look at my other computer over here that I have my guest on, and the call drops, right? So the call drops, and I think, wow, this has happened before, actually. This has happened before. Skype can just drop a call on you. So then I notice when the call drops, Cheryl Costa, who's been fascinating tonight, also went from green. If you use Skype at all, there's a little indicator, right? It went from green, meaning online, to white, meaning offline. And so I know some people keep their Skype offline, and even though they're going to be a guest on the program and I can call, you can still call someone, even though Skype says offline. So I look at it, it says offline, and I call, and I call. And I call, and I call, and I call. Let me look at this here. I think I tried over the break about 6 or 7 times. No answer. Any of those times. And so then I go to plan B. Actually, we have a plan B and a plan C tonight. So I go to plan B, and no answer. So, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know what just happened here. I have lost my guest. For some reason, it's just gone. And I can't seem to get Cheryl back. So, Cheryl Costa, if you're out there and you can hear me, please call back. You're more than welcome to call back. I was certainly looking forward to the rest of the conversation tonight. I kind of feel like, somebody turned my television program off right in the middle of when it started getting good. And I don't know what to tell you out there. I can apologize. It's a little bit beyond my control here. I don't know why we lost Cheryl Costa so suddenly. But I have to be honest with you. We have lost Cheryl Costa. So, you know what? The only choice I have until Cheryl Costa comes back, which, you know what my main thought is that I hope she's okay. I really hope something didn't just happen to her. And you know what? My mind, I tend to think of the worst possible case scenario, but it just might be maybe her internet is out, maybe a storm blew through, maybe a lightning strike. You know what? I have no way of knowing what happened. But we have lost our guest this evening, and so, look, guys, it's time for open lines. It's time for open lines. What other option is there? Because I guarantee you guys don't want to listen to me talk for an hour and a half straight, right? So, let's move then to open lines, and let's keep the same subject. Let's keep the same topic, all right? We might as well go with the same thing that we're going to do in the first place, which is talk about your most recent UFO sightings. My only regret is that Cheryl Costa is not here with us to be here for that conversation. I just don't get it. So, yes? All right, I'm being told that our guest can answer her landline. Okay, well, all right. Right here live on the air, guys, so this is the only thing I can do. Maybe, just maybe we can get our guest back and find out what happened. And, just never know what's going to happen on this program. But I'll give this a minute here and see, and I do want to get to all of your phone calls. I just hope that Cheryl is okay. Okay, so we may have Cheryl back. Let me find out here. To the phones I am going, and Cheryl, is that you?
Yes. I had my broadband drop out.
Oh, so your internet dropped. Okay, my God, it is so good to hear the sound of your voice right now. I thought maybe something had happened to you.
No, we'll probably have Skype back in maybe between now and the next break, but I just wanted to let you know, we'll just do a hard line there for the time being.
Yeah, why don't we, if you can, why don't we just go ahead and stay on your landline so that we know at least we've got reliable communication?
Okay, very good. Let's go with that then.
All right, because I have phone calls. I've got people out there that do want to talk to you, and we just may have people out there who've got UFO sightings, recent UFO sightings to talk about. So, all right, guys, look, we are back in business. We can do the same thing that we had intended on doing, but now Cheryl is going to be here with us, which is what I wanted in the first place. So let's get right into it. Now, I do have a caller who's been on hold for quite some time. Let's see if the person's still awake, Cheryl. We'll go to line 1, and you're on the air with Cheryl Costa and myself. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Heather. Thank you. This is David in Jerusalem. I'd like to ask...
David, are you on speakerphone, David?
Okay, let me go off. Okay.
Yeah, that really doesn't... That's not for broadcast.
Okay, so I've been listening to Richard Dolan a lot, the UFO publisher, and he's talking about how the entire UFO field is under attack because of all the cognitive dissidents from Cass Sunstein's groups, and I wanted to ask you if you feel that any of these quacks have infiltrated the talk radio shows, such as abductees and contactees who may be disingenuous.
Cheryl?
I'm not quite sure what he's asking.
Okay, well...
Okay, Cass Sunstein was the White House czar, information czar, and he wrote a white paper about how he wanted to infiltrate, fringe groups, so to speak. And when Luke Radowski confronted him on the issue, he's like, what? Did I ever write that? No, I hope I didn't write that. But anyhow, Richard Dolan's been talking about how the UFO community is under attack, and he's, referenced this reality. With
okay, I get it. I would not disagree with that. I have, when my book came out online, and I started publishing data from my book, like on Facebook, and the amount of trolls that I had come after me was ridiculous. And these people had IDs. They had absolutely no information about them whatsoever, and they just chased me and haunted me. It was relentless. And And then I went back in. I was going to block a bunch of them, and I couldn't even find their existence on the Facebook the next day.
So you're agreeing with that then?
Yeah, I would agree that there's a certain amount of people in this community that are being harassed on this. And I can't go into it any deeper than that, other than the fact that I know that a lot of prominent writers have had their share of headaches related to people coming after them and either harassing them on the phone or harassing their emails or hacking their computers, things like this. Yeah, I've heard a lot of this. But do I think it's all the government? I can't tell you that. I don't know. I know that when we were writing the book, we got to a point where we were very I don't want to use I hate to use this word paranoid. So we literally were every weekend as we finished any work we did on a weekend, we would save it to a thumb drive. We had about 7 thumb drives out there, and different people had them in an envelope in their desk at their work or something like that for us.
Oh, it's not paranoid, Cheryl. It's a heightened sense of awareness.
Yeah. So, we did that partly as an off-site backup in case the house burnt down, any number of things. Basically, our concern was that all of our data that we were crunching and was getting better and better and better every week would disappear. And we were concerned about that. So we had copies of it, and we had like a little logbook. In fact, I had it in my phone. I had a little logbook as to what site had what version of the refined data. So I was concerned about it rather seriously.
Well, it's also come to my attention here recently that there are people recruited by the CIA straight out of the military many years ago, and probably still going on, and they are specifically hired to go out and debunk UFOs. Now, I have names, but it's not ladylike. I'm not going to reveal any names to cause more problems, but I can say I recently was given a leaked document, a leaked top secret document that speaks in very plain English about us being visited here on Earth. And, oh my God, Cheryl, you would not believe the reaction to it. I've pretty well been attacked by the ufology community. And they say that the document is fake. And actually, that's some pretty tame language, we'll just put it that way, compared to what people out there actually said. I mean, I got a name in my head. I won't say it, but there was a person out there who put out an article a day after day after day, about how this document was just altogether 100% fake. But yet they never came out with any substantial evidence to give me as to why this document is fake. But no, it's automatically fake, everybody. Nothing to see here. We're just going to squash this. Unbelievable.
If you notice, they very frequently don't have good facts about it. But boy, the rhetoric of fake seems to be their menu.
Oh, yeah.
I wrote 2 articles. One of them, both of them related to Billy Muir material.
Uh-oh.
Okay. And what I didn't realize I was stepping on the third rail of UFOlogy. And the amount of, when you put a newspaper column up online, there's room for comment. And there was a 50-50 war. There was a war going on, and I stayed out of it. But I let all these. I let the pro Billy Muir people say what they wanted to say. I had the anti Billy Muir people saying what they wanted to say. And the problem that I had was with the anti Billy Muir material people was that they claimed a lot of stuff and claimed a lot of fraud, but you couldn't nail them down on specifics and show me your documentation. And the pro-Billy Muir people had lots of scientific reports and things, and that's what bothered me about it. Am I supporting and endorsing Billy Muir? No, I was just writing an article saying, hey, the last one I wrote was I said, hey, maybe this material needs a little bit more examination and a second look, because the screaming and yelling of fraud, fake, and charlatan might just be a cover-up of the fact that he may have some real serious material. And that's all I said. You would have thought I threw the baby Jesus out into the cold.
Yeah. Well, and I will keep myself out of trouble and reserve comment, because there is a person who works in close relation to the Billy Meyer case, who, whenever Billy Meyer's name comes up on my program, actually transcribes every word that I have to say about it and then emails it to me. So I'm not going to get involved with that or that individual.
No,
and if that individual is listening, I'll just tell you right now, quit bugging me about having you on my program. You know who you are. I'm never going to have you on my program.
Well, a policy position I've taken regarding this, and this is the last I'm going to speak about it, is I simply was, as a reporter, I've done 4 years, well over 200 positive articles about the UFO community and the UFO phenomena, and I have tried to be very positive. My editors have been very positive about this thing, and this is a subject matter most newspapers won't even touch. And I was very hurt that I had these I'm going to call them monsters come after me. In fact, they've started going around to different admins of groups on Facebook and telling them, oh, she endorses Billy Muir, you shouldn't have her. Her data's all considered suspect now and all this other stuff. And there's just been this in the last couple of months, this very serious effort to discredit my data of this book. My book scared some people.
Well, the subject frightens a lot of people. It really, really does. All right. On line 3, you're on the air with Cheryl Costa, and welcome to the program.
Hello, Heather.
Well,
and
hello.
Cheryl.
Hello. You're on the air. Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you for taking my call. This is Shirley in Spokane.
Well, hi,
and
Shirley.
I'm going to tell you something that I've only told a couple of people before this, and I'm going to go on the air and tell everybody who listens. But I had something that I saw in the sky, and it isn't in 2017. This is a couple of years ago, but I really don't know how to classify it. And I was out on my balcony. At that time, I smoked, and I was having a smoke, like Cheryl has talked about. And it was in the summer, probably around, this time of the summer. Mm-hmm. And it was after dark. And so I'm sitting out there on a chair, and I live in a great big apartment complex.
Okay.
And so looking out, the rest of the complex covers a lot of the sky. I don't have a full view of the sky, but I saw a really bright light that looked to me like a planet. Sometimes you'll see, sometimes of the year, you'll see Venus in the sky, and I forget what other one, but they'll be real bright like that.
Mars?
And I don't know. I'm not that up on my astronomy.
Well, out here in the desert, when I look up at the sky is so clear that you can actually tell when you see Mars because it's truly red. It's really cool.
I've seen that before in childhood, before we had so much light pollution. But anyway, so I see this light, and it was white, and it just looked like a planet. And it was just right up against kind of an L shape of a part of the complex, And so I thought, well, when I go back in, I'm going to have to go on Google and see what's in the sky right now, because I think I'm seeing a planet. Well, the strangest thing happened. I felt a tremendous amount of love coming to me from that light.
Really?
Now, how you could feel love coming from a light does not make any rational sense. And yet, I remember it very, very well. Other times when I felt that degree of love has been in prayer, or a recent short visitation from my deceased father, who loves me very much. And, you just feel that filling up your heart center. Well, that's what I felt looking at this light. And I don't know why, but I looked away. I don't know why I did that. And so then I went to look back at it, and it was gone. Like it had never been there at all.
And was the feeling also gone?
Yeah. Excuse me. Yes. I mean, you know how when you've had an experience of love, you have something residual that stays with you.
Well, sure.
But I didn't have that. But no, I did not have that direct experience of love, you know, beaming itself to my heart center. That was the end of the experience. And I've never had anything else like that again. And I was wondering if Cheryl has any ideas about that.
Cheryl?
Yeah, the CE5 people frequently say that one of the processes you're supposed to do is reach out with joy and love,
Mm-hmm.
and they seem to get similar feedback back from whoever they're projecting this invitation, so to speak, to. It's not an uncommon thing. In fact, the impression I'm getting is people who have negative experiences is it's their own fears that are really getting to them versus what's being projected. People get freaked out because very frequently people get freaked out because their reality gets rattled because it's suddenly this type of an event makes it very clear to them that there's something else going on out here.
Mm-hmm.
And that rattles a lot of people, much more than you realize. I've seen people break into a nervous sweat to the point where they almost collapsed, type of thing. I've seen other people just sit there and just suck it up and love it, you know. But yeah, it's something that has been reported by numerous people.
Well, then I hope that makes our caller feel a little more assured. Does that help you?
It does. I'm glad to hear that other people are having this experience too. And Cheryl, what is CE5? What do you mean by that?
Close Encounters 5. There's the Close Encounters scale that was developed by Dr. Hynek back in the 70s, and Close Encounters 1, 2, and 3 are about seeing them up a UFO or an extraterrestrial thing up close and personal. He later added CE5 or Close Encounters 4 for the idea of alien to human initiated contact. Okay, the C5 concept, or Close Encounters 5, is something that was developed by Dr. Greer, and it's the idea of human to alien initiated contact. And by the way, Spokane County is a heavy hitter county in Washington State. In the 15 years of my study, they had 241 sightings in the county, and the immediate Spokane City Valley area had 201.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I know it's got to feel a little strange for you to talk about this when you never have talked about it before, but it's got to, at the same time, also give you a little bit of relief, right? Talk about it, finally?
Well, it does, and besides that, I know that there's something going on here with people, whether they're having positive experiences or negative ones, or like Whitley, he's had the gamut. And I know that there's something going on here, and that the more of us who talk about it, like you said earlier, Heather, the easier it's going to be for other people to talk about it.
Yes.
So
yes.
That's what's motivating me, and I'll have to go within to ask myself how I might have initiated this contact. But I know that you've talked other times about a seeming connection between ET and people who are deceased from our world and have crossed over to the next world, to the other side or whatever. And so, I'm wondering if there's
well, that's the big...
Just what I saw is a connection to the other side, on the other side of the veil somehow. But I'll have to go within in meditation and prayer and see if I can find that out.
Definitely do. And if you get any answers, do call and talk to me about it. Let me know. Thank you very much for the call. And the phone lines, everybody, are open right now. My guest this evening, Cheryl Costa, is back with us once again. And we want to know about your latest UFO sightings. Of course, you can ask Cheryl the questions you may have, but I want to know about your latest UFO sightings.
The CC Skywave is the perfect ultra-compact travel radio you can take anywhere. Hi, this is globe-trotting Bob Crane here. By now you all know I love radio. When I travel, I cringe thinking of a hotel radio. Not anymore with the CC Skywave. The Skywave has great audio for its size, but like all CC radios, the focus is reception. The Skywave has great reception on weak stations with precise tuning to pull in stations better. Also included is a NOAA weather band with alert, international shortwave, as well as the aviation band. Aviation allows you to listen to live, nearby pilots and air traffic control while traveling. CC earbuds are included, which sound great for voice and music. Join in on the listening fun. Order the CC Skywave for your next voyage and adventure.
To order the CC Skywave, call C. Crane now at 800-522-8863. That's 800-522-8863. Or at ccrane.com.
Do you or a loved one suffer migraine headaches? Listen to what scientist Kurt Hendricks has to say.
If you are one of the millions of people who get migraines, you need to know about MiGrelief. Hi, I'm Kurt Hendricks, the scientist who created MiGrelief, the patented dietary supplement that addresses nutritional deficiencies in adults and children with migraines. Thousands of physicians and pharmacists recommend MiGrelief.
Call 800-MIG-7354 or visit MIG911.com.
Do you worry a lot? Whether you're a college student, busy professional, parent, or grandparent, ongoing stress and elevated levels of the stress hormone cortisol can rob your memory, your health, and your future. Now you can combat the effects of stress and anxiety while improving your memory and recall at the same time with the dietary supplement Calm and Clever. Studies show that the ingredients in Calm and Clever reduce cortisol by as much as 30% in 1 to 2 weeks. Call 1-800-758-8746 or calmandclever.com.
Hi, folks. CBD is the home run hitter for health right now. Why, you ask? Because of what it does for the body.
It's time to shop in the cool, relaxed comfort of the Tri-City Shopping Center in Redlands, conveniently located on the I-10 freeway between the Alabama